Well, Andrew, thank you very much for having this conversation. I'm just so excited to learn from you and to share your knowledge and passion for collecting with everyone who's here. So to start, could you just tell me a little bit about your background and the work that you do?
Sure, Kay. Thank you so much for inviting me today, and it's such a thrill to be part of your seal collecting. But my history goes back some 20 years with seals, and I have to say that was really on the back of my father, who started 30 years ago, and I got pulled into the passion, if you like, along with him, because he was a great collector. He collected a lot of things. So before the seals, he spent 20 years collecting silver, sterling silver, and Scottish provincial silver, and he had a huge collection which he sold over 2 days at an auction. And I think he came out of that and realized that he wanted something else, something that he couldn't come to the end of. And seals was a subject because it was so wide ranging. So I didn't get involved probably for the first 10 years because I had other things going on, but it was only when my father started needing some help with cataloguing the collection, which started to grow. It was big. It was starting to get really big, and he needed a system in place. And so myself and he devised a cataloguing system, which did involve photographing every piece. And it was on that particular point that he wrote me in, because I enjoy doing that kind of thing. So I photographed every piece, and so I've got to know the collection, and slowly but surely he's dragged me into the passion. And you know what it's like when you buy a seal and you unwrap it and you get the excitement of, is it what you thought you were going to buy, and shall we clean it? It just started becoming part of my life as it had his, and so I've had 20 years of it, and I don't know many other collectors. It's a pretty closed world over here. So finding UK was just a dream, because you've opened my eyes to a side of seal collecting that I never knew existed. Father never knew of it. So you have opened our eyes to a side of it, which, like using the seals, we've never used seals. We collected them because of their historical importance, perhaps, but we never thought about using them. And so I've got to thank you for doing that for us.
Well, that's very kind of you. Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it is more recent. It wasn't until 2020 that I started sharing my work with antiques, and then started meeting other collectors. And I agree, it's kind of a solitary path collecting in so many ways, but then just with social media, being able to see into other people's collections. And I have your book, your dad's book too,
yes,
that I've had for a long time, and I never realized until I guess the past year or so that you're the one overseeing the collection, and the kind of the family story behind this amazing collection, and even the photography that it's you who's doing it. And so I would love to hear more though about the cataloging, the photography. How have you gone about that? Tell me more first about the size of the collection, the kind of range of collection, and then how, even just with my collection, I only have about 500 seals. So yeah, how do you approach it, especially with such a large collection?
It was an interesting one, because my father everything had to be done properly, and so he had the vision to at least to know that as it got bigger, the possibility of it becoming unmanageable became more real. And so that's why fairly early on, and I'm saying fairly on, we were probably 2,000 seals in, we came up with a system which involved initially grouping them. So in fact, the sheet you can see behind my shoulder on the up here. This is our index, if you like, of the groups that we use, and you might be able to see on the cabinets behind. Each one has a letter which corresponds to a group. So we were able to start grouping them, but we also had to have an electronic version, if you like. Dad and computers were not happy bedmates. His computer abilities kind of stopped way before Excel, but fortunately I did a bit of Excel, so we had literally an Excel spreadsheet. So every seal that was bought was allocated a number in chronological number, in date order. So we started an Excel spreadsheet for the first 2,000 seals. We put the seal number, the group, a description, a rough description of the seal, what we paid for it, and where we bought it. And that got us going. And we worked off that Excel spreadsheet all the way. We used it until I started to become, if you like, the curator 6-7 months ago. We've devised a database now, which is far more impressive and useful. But going back to how we catalogue, we literally had trays made depending on the size of the typical seal. This is Group A, medieval, so the seals are smaller, so we have more of them in each tray, and each one would have a card. So for every seal we have a number on the seal, so number 30. And I'll mention about numbering because it's quite an important part of that. So the seal is number 30. So in the Excel spreadsheet, it's number 30. And in that pocket, it has a card, so number 30. So if anything happens to that seal, if it goes anywhere, or if it sells, or if it's whatever, that card we move and we keep that separate to the seal. It's a pretty basic system, but it did work. And every seal has a paper sheet, and the paper sheet goes into a folder. There are 100 in a folder. The collection is now 4,800. So we've got a lot of folders in one room. We've got a lot of seals in another, but they do relate very well. It's a bit clumsy, but it works. And that's roughly how we work it. Every seal has to have a number put on it, and that isn't always easy. And it has to be done in such a way. Do you want me to explain just briefly how that works, Kay? Because it's,
I would love to hear that. Yes.
So every seal has a number on it. Here's another one here. This is a really nice medieval seal. It's number 362, with the carnelian stone set in it. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is it's got 362. Because we have a variety of materials, obviously, of seals, we needed to have a system that would be robust enough not to wear off, but gentle enough not to do damage to the seal. So what we've done is we apply a thin coat of nail varnish. We then write, when that's dried, we write on the nail varnish the number, and then we put another thin coat of varnish over it. That way it protects the number from wearing off, but all of it can be easily removed with nail polish remover, and it doesn't damage the seal, and for most surfaces we can use it. So there was a lot of numbering, and And the collection is now, it was 4,800 when my father passed away 2 years ago. I reckon it's about 4,200 now, 4,003. So it's still quite large, but strangely enough, I feel comfortable. It's manageable. That's the thing. It's not daunting or overwhelming. It is manageable.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if part of that is that you have a system. You're calling it basic. It doesn't sound basic. I mean, especially given the amount of work that you have and how organized it is. But once you have everything in the system, it makes it easier to manage. Where I actually have a spreadsheet of mine, but I have not been good about updating it. And then when it's 18 months later and I try to remember, well, what did I pay for that?
Yeah.
It's really hard to figure out, especially because a lot of sales come from eBay. Your eBay history clears.
Yeah.
It's the 2-year mark. So if you're not staying on top of it.
Mm.
And I'm curious for you, you mentioned that when you started in the wax seal world, it wasn't necessarily like your own passion that brought you there, but your dad had this passion, and then you decide to help him and photograph. How has your perspective on seals changed from when you started, and what's kind of grown to be your unique interest in them at this point?
Yeah, well, good question, because everybody needs that why do it, and for me it wasn't obvious to start with. Why I did it was because there was a need to take photographs because Dad was a pain in the butt. So I did it out of duty. I have to say it was a bit of that. But as you know, with seals, there's something that gets you, and over time, I started to, I suppose, I started to have emotions about certain types of seal. So it was, for me, it was the 17th century religious seals, which were, they fascinated me, and I spent hours researching, trying to find which monastery they would have come from. Other ones weren't that important to me at the time, but over time, I suppose my interest has changed to different types of seal, and my why has changed because it's like looking at old friends. I open some of these drawers, and I swear it is the same as going back and meeting a friend you haven't seen for 5 years, and it just becomes part of me. These seals, and I didn't think that I could do that with an inanimate object, 200 or 300 year old. But again, the feelings of holding old seals, which were, they were tools, they were used, they weren't made just to look good, they were made to be used. And so being able to hold an object which might be 300 years, it might be 100 years, and this one here, which is actually number 1 in the box, this was, in fact, it's in the book. It's about 1320. This one, beautiful condition, and you think, in 900 years, 800 years, who has held that seal, who has used it, and over time it became more of a privilege to be able to pick up and use some of these things. So yeah, I'm very defensive about the seals now. They are like family, and and I know how much they meant to my father, and I suppose there is a bit of that, of course, that they were his babies, and I've taken on his babies. Yeah, so they are an important part of my life now.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and the way you're explaining it, I think it's something that we all feel as collectors in the seal world, as it connects you to a larger part of history and humanity. And for me, when I hold a seal and I feel, oh man, not just how many people have held this, but what was their relationship to the seal? At the beginning, some of these were just functional objects, but then clearly there was a level of artistry to them and pride that went into them, or the materials used, maybe even just a seal fob is sometimes they look like a fashion flex to me when I get them. I go, oh, wow, this person was really, really classy who wore this. But also the sense of my own impermanence and realizing that these objects are hopefully going to far outlive me, and that 100 years from now, 200 years from now, somebody will have that same feeling, and maybe with the internet they'll be able to come watch this conversation and see the seals and the collectors and what it means to us. I'm curious though how you see the life cycle of collecting and how that changes. Just as an example for me, I'm still quite early on in my collecting life cycle, just that I'm in my 30s and I'll probably collect into my 80s, but I'm already at a point of refining. And so I don't necessarily have the intention of having a much larger collection, but again, refining. So as an example, I love cube seals. I have that little one that I got from your collection, and I just recently got a new one. It has motifs that I have, but the quality is finer. So I intend on getting rid of my original and bringing in this other one. So I see some of my life cycle changing already as a collector, but how do you see the life cycle of a collector and also the life cycle of a collection?
I think that, I don't know about you. Well, I don't know about UK, but the obsession, and it did become such an obsession for my father. The obsession to collect. The intentions were always to maintain a size of around 1,000 max, because that was the number which he thought would enable him to know the collection. Over time, the obsession became not just on the quality, but also on quality. Sorry, the other way around. It became more quantity, and it became, a bit like that eBay bug where you've got to win. It was, he was a very disciplined person, which is ironic, considering that he could not at times say no, and and every now and again we would have a cull where we would go through the collection and pull out 300 or 400 and move them on, so that the collection at least didn't run away with it. But we ended up with 4,800, and largely because my father, he loved the thrill of a chase. He did this in life with just about everything, and he took that with him into his seal collection. So if there was an auction, he just loved that thrill of winning. So he had the intentions. He had every great intention of limiting it, but really couldn't. Because I'm a different kind of collector, and I like a lot of the seals, but I'm not at that point where I have to win simply because to accumulate. I think 1,000 is too many, and my current idea, as you know, we're going through a period where we're reducing the size of the collection. I've got a collection of 100, which within the collection, as it were, and that 100 is the 100 are ones which are not going anywhere, because they mean something to me, or because they're pretty much the best of their type. Now, I know I'm going to end up with a lot of the ivory seals. We have about 800 ivory handled seals, and as you know, we have a newly enforced Ivory Act in the UK, which makes it pretty much impossible to do anything with them. So whether I like it or not, I'm going to end up with those. So I haven't got that obsession where I have to. I'm not a buyer. I stopped buying a couple of years ago, and I don't even look anymore because, to be honest, I've got more on my plate looking at how to deal with those 4,800, and I don't want to buy. We've done enough buying over the last 30 years. And to a certain extent, I think, serious buyers like my father, they do affect the general seal market. I think you get two or three big big players in the market. It does artificially change the whole market for seals.
Definitely. We see that even just with a community of small collectors who know each other, finding out, oh, wait, I was bidding against this one person who also really wants this motif. And you don't need that many people when it's in an auction. You just need one other to bid it up. And I was laughing knowingly when you were talking about your dad's obsession and that kind of fear of missing out, the need to win. And I have a small guide that teaches antique seal collecting. And I have strategies for that specifically because it's something that I've felt on both sides of losing a seal that I've been obsessed with and the emotional pain of losing something that I see in my collection, or being in a moment where you bid on something because you don't want to lose. And then you think, oh man, I overpaid for this and I don't actually love the piece as much as I should for what I paid. And so I have strategies so that I don't get in that situation. My bids are all submitted well ahead of time with whatever I'm comfortable paying. And then if I lose it, the bid, then I'm like, oh, it wasn't meant to be. But I have even text chains with my fellow collector friends, and my friend Melissa sometimes will text me an image of an auction that she missed, and something went, in our opinion, like atrociously low. How could this person get it? But then I think, oh, but then on the other side, wow, that person found this amazing piece at such a low cost, and you're kind of in like all different sides of the equation as a collector. But I really appreciate what you're saying about the max 1,000 seals, so that you can really know them. And for me, being that I use my seals too, I feel like if a seal is in my home and I'm not using it, it could be in someone else's home and they would be cherishing it. And so kind of honoring that life cycle. And clearly, even with 500, I have more than I can use, even, within a year. I'm sure there's seals that I don't press, but I still have the connection to the seal and I still appreciate them. So I don't have the kind of the other side of the obsession of I must get rid of things, but that sense of just appreciating and refining. And so let's talk a little bit about the auctions that are coming up and how you're approaching them, but also, what people should be looking out for in the coming months.
Well, we've got I have a strategy which involves offering the seals to buyers in different formats. So I do quite a lot on eBay, and eBay I've been doing since 2007, and I know the eBay market quite well, so I know which seals do well on eBay, what type and what pricing. So I do that well, and I have some really good friends who are buyers and collectors. So I really enjoy that interaction. The other area is the website, which because I started this about 7 months ago, I've created a website which actually is being upgraded in the next month, like yours, and well done for yours. It's a lot of work, but it will be worth it. And in the last 7 months, that's done. It's done better than I thought it was going to be able to do. And then the final thing are auctions, which are through auction houses. And again, that is it's a very good way of attracting collectors from all over the world. And the choice of auctioneer is pretty much key for me. probably more than anything else, because um, I'm sure you can appreciate, Kay, that this is my life at the moment, and part of the journey. It is the journey. It's not the destination that's important. I want to enjoy this part of my life because I didn't. My father had no intentions of going anywhere. I didn't expect to be doing this, but I have to say I'm really enjoying it, and I want to continue enjoying it. And it means that the relationship that I have with collectors and people like yourselves in the States, who I never knew existed. So the people are really important. And so when I look at an auction house, I'm not looking at the status of the auction house in the world market of auctions. That's nice and feeds into ego pretty much exclusively. But what's important is to find an auction house who is sympathetic perhaps to the needs of our collection, and who work hard because they like the seals as well. And I found some really good auction houses in the UK who I'm working with, and we got a big one up in Scotland next week with Lyon and Turnbull, who are Scottish auctioneers, and the guy there, Colin Fraser, he's been a friend of the collection for, it must be nearly 25, 30 years. I mean, he has known my father for a long time. He knew, and I think he probably sold a lot of the Scottish provincial silver to him in the previous collection. So he knows the collection well. And so we're using Lyon and Turnbull next week for the big Scottish sales. And so when we look at other auction houses, again, it's the people within them rather than the company per se. Yeah.
I can really appreciate that. And that is the intention of wax seals from the beginning. It's an object that connects people. You're sending something through the mail. And I even that sense of enjoying kind of these physical objects for our time on Earth, if they don't serve the way we connect to others, what's the point, right? And I love that even collectors who have totally different styles of collecting, or they're in different life cycles, can develop relationships simply through seal collecting. And that's part of the beauty of it. And I also just find it really beautiful of people that are just starting and they maybe just got their first seal, can still connect with somebody who has a huge collection, and even just the prodigious size of your collection, and get to kind of peek inside and see the history is really beautiful. But yeah, I totally appreciate the intention of putting the people first before the prestige of the collection. And also, for me, seals are about intention, and the image that you press, it has a meaning to it. And so I've noticed that when I'm collecting, if I'm buying from a collector who just seems like they don't care about the seal, I'm not as interested in it. Like I want somebody that appreciates the value of it, I guess. And we talked some about the drawers behind you in the organization, but before we wrap up, do you want to show a couple pieces maybe, or?
Pieces. Well, I've got the drawer in front of me, which I had here. Actually, I will show you this one, because this is number 51. So this is and this is in the book. So this is probably right at the beginning of the book. And this seal here, well, you won't be able to see it very well because the camera here is not great, but it's a little medieval. Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So what I love about this, and I think there are literally 2 or 3 left in the country. There's one in the British Museum. So this is a screw out seal. So by turning the trefoil top, it screws out the top of the matrix. So the matrix can be used either the center part only, or screw it back in again, and you can use the outer and the center. And there are literally a couple of these in the country. This is silver. It's beautiful. You know, we know that we know who it belonged to. And something like that, you know, is a privilege to be able to hold on to, because it is just such a beautiful piece. What else is this it? Yes, this is again, this will be in the book. This is the Duchy of Cornwall, so probably relevant because of the coronation of the Prince of Wales to King this week in England, or the UK, I should say. This is a Cocket seal, which is an old tax seal, and this belongs to the Duchy of Cornwall. And the Duchy of Cornwall was, well, still is owned by the Prince of Wales. And so the Duchy of Cornwall is now passed over to King Charles's son, William. But this dates back to, I don't know, you can probably tell me, Kay, by looking in the book, but it's, here we are, circa 1355. So this would have belonged to the tax guy in Cornwall, who would stamp the documents of ships arriving in the UK in Cornwall, which would say that the tax had been paid on the goods, so that when the ship went further along the coast, then they could display the fact that the tax had been paid. But this is, it's a beautiful, beautiful seal. It's heavy.
Amazing.
And early.
And the hole in the back was where there was a wooden handle, presumably.
Yeah, yeah. I think it must have been wood.
Yeah. Wow.
So that is rather nice. Do I dare bring on him?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So let me just put that there and move this a second. So, Kay, before we started filming, I was saying that this belonged to Edward, who abdicated and then moved to France with Mrs. Simpson. What was her first name?
Wallace.
Oh, Wallace.
Yeah.
So this belonged to him. He was a great lover of French bulldog, I guess this is. And the matrix, let's turn that around there. It's got the letter E, Edward. Anyway, so this is one of a number of royal related seals that we have. And you can see that this is quite a lot of it comprised of ivory. This, I think, we will be able to deal with because of its importance. So there's one exemption which is quite important for the collection, for those artifacts which are of national importance, well, I'm not sure what the phrase is, but it is of such quality, they are exempt, and I think that might well qualify. So that one there is rather nice. I mean, there are so many seals here. I could bore you with so many. J is always a good group.
Yeah.
J means legs and arms. So here we have a number of armored hands.
Yeah.
So that's gold and bloodstone with an uncut matrix.
Mm-hmm. And for those who are here, just so they know, matrix is the official term of a wax seal stamp. Matrix is the actual tool.
So the matrix is the working part.
Yeah.
This one's uncut as well. But it's a rather
hand. Yeah, wow.
Armored hand.
And what's the green part? This
bit.
Yeah.
So that is rather nice. It's malachite behind chased gold.
Wow.
And whilst we're talking malachite, this is rather a sweet little hand made of malachite.
Wow, it's beautiful.
Um,
What's the intaglio on that one? Is it blank uncut
this
as well?
one is a royal coronet and initials.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it is identified, but you'll forgive me, I don't know who it is.
Okay, wow.
Um,
Some of the identification, does that go into looking at the type of crown? Because for Americans, we don't have a way of
yeah,
recognizing aristocracy like you do, but I've heard that depending
have,
on what the crown is, it means different things.
we have a whole library, and again, the seal book library is one that is comprehensive. We have about 330 titles, and some beautiful, beautiful books. And then alongside that, we have a working library, which are reference books, and in those we do a lot of the research on the armorials. It takes time, and when you've got a large collection, to be honest, we don't have the time. We haven't got the time to identify all of them, and I hate it. I hate the fact that we've got some cracking seals and we have no idea who it belonged to. It seems criminal. So it does irk me that we've got some fantastic seals that we simply haven't been able to identify. We've identified probably 1,000 or so, which is going some, but you can tell we're way behind, and so a lot of when we use an auction house, that relationship is really important because the cataloguing is it's 80% part of the job.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, the poor auction houses have to spend a lot of time trying to identify ones that we haven't.
Figuring it out. Well,
Yeah.
here, quickly, could you just move the little bulldog
Oh,
over?
sorry.
We like having him here, but he was trying to upstage. Well, and I wouldn't be so hard on yourself. I mean, part of being a steward of a collection is just taking care of it so that it can last. And so you don't necessarily need to know everything about it. And it's hard with seals because a lot of them don't have provenance. So, or paperwork that shows their provenance. And so it's a lot of research. And
Yeah.
I know we're close to time here. So I thought for another session when we go live that we can do some questions from people who've seen this video. But
Sure.
Are there any other just final things that you want to mention before we wrap up?
I think I would encourage anybody to get in touch with ourselves. I have a small team here who we plan what we're going to be doing with the seals. We've met some fantastic people as part of these last 7 months in particular. Instagram has been a game changer for us. As I said, you've inspired us in a way that we're now trying to do the wax melting because we're actually enjoying using some of these seals now ourselves. I would encourage anybody to get in touch with us if they have any type of collecting that I wouldn't be so bold to say we can advise on, but we can certainly put our heads together. Or if there's a type of seal they're after, we might be able to point them in the right direction. We want to be involved because we're really enjoying this journey. And we have a website, which is sigilumseals.com, which is aimed at putting or offering some seals to collectors they're seals that we think collectors will be keen on. There's also the chance for people to get in touch with us via the website or Instagram. But if anybody wants to, if UK want to do something further with some Q&As and bring some people in, other collectors with some questions, I'm certainly up for it. You know, I'm really enjoying this part of the journey. So yeah, please do think about it.
Okay, wonderful. Well, and for everyone watching, stay tuned. We'll let you know when we will do that. And again, just thank you for not just taking the time, but all that you do in the collecting space. I, followed the collection for years, and I have so much respect for you and your dad. And I just really am humbled by your openness and sharing your collection and your knowledge with us, especially again as somewhat of a young collector in my life cycle of collecting. To get to connect with you is something I'll cherish my whole life. So thank you very much. And yeah, for anyone here, stay tuned. We will let you know when we'll go live.
Thank you.
Stop